Anime as a whole has a ton of issues, from an overabundance of filler to mediocre plot, from poor animation to poorly paid animators. But if there's one thing ruining anime above all else, one thing holding the industry back as a whole, it's women. Women in anime are a problem. 90% of them only exist as fan service or as an accessory to the male protagonist. It's rare to find a female character that has their own motives and gets their own character progression. Most of these women are not well written. What? You don't believe me? Well, to prove it, we need to talk about what a well-written woman even looks like in the first place. And it's actually pretty simple. A well-written woman is just a woman. A woman with her own personality and her own motives and systems of beliefs. A woman that is not there just to be sexualized and is not sexualized, period, and also plays a major role in the plot. And somehow, most anime does not meet that measure, especially in shonen anime. So let's look at a couple of examples. What is an example of an anime that does a terrible job writing women? Well, we're gonna go with the most infamous example, My Hero Academia. I think anyone that watches this show can acknowledge that the female characters in this show are not exactly well written. They are all sexualized to some extent where they don't play a large role in the plot, or both. Let's look at a couple of examples really quickly. Uraraka was a character I had a lot of hope for when I started My Hero, and I was just left disappointed. She has so much potential, but it feels like as the show goes on, she just keeps getting whittled down more and more, and at this point she's not much more than a love interest for Midoriya. Then there's Momo, a girl who was led into UA on recommendation, the same grounds as Todoroki, and yet she plays a much less important role in the show compared to him. And she also lacks confidence compared to many of her peers. You could say that this is just a personality trait, but it's such a common trope in female characters. I had such high hopes for her going into this show because I thought her quirk was really cool, but she has not had a large role to play despite her abilities. Her outfit is also incredibly revealing, and there's really no reason for it, especially when you see what many of the men are wearing. I can really only think of two characters that are strong female characters in My Hero, and one of them is an over-sexualized dominatrix. The other one is Froppy. She seems to be fairly independent and doesn't feel like an accessory to any main character. Well, besides maybe this guy. But even in her case, she doesn't play a major role in the show. She's very obviously a side character, and while many side characters can be well written, it is disappointing to have to look this deep in the My Hero cast for a single good female character. I should probably mention that I am only on season 3 of My Hero Academia, but from what I've heard from other watchers, male and female, it doesn't really get much better. I could talk about the issues with the women in this show for hours, but I think it would be best if we moved on to an example of another anime that doesn't do their women that well, but still better than My Hero Academia. This time we're going to talk about Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer women are pretty hit or miss. You have people like Nezuko and Shinobu in the same show. A lot of the supporting women are well written, but the major women, not so much. Like in the entire first 2 seasons, the female lead has 0 lines. Literally 0. Even when she breaks her little mouth thing, all she does is growl. And yeah, she's obviously physically strong, but Nezuko really feels like a plot convenience more than anything else. She pops out of her box to save the day and then disappears for the rest of the season. Another example is Kanao, as she also has almost 0 lines. This wouldn't be an issue if it was a show that didn't have a ton of dialogue, but like Tanjiro and Zenitsu have so many monologues, especially Tanjiro. But honestly, I don't think it's even really a woman issue in Demon Slayer. I think it's just a character issue. None of the characters are that fleshed out and they're all fairly one-dimensional. But I think even with that one-dimensionality, the male characters are written better than the female. But I think it's time to move on to some anime that do female characters a little bit better, starting with Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan has some great female characters, such as Ymir, Hanji, and Gabi, but it does also have some pretty bad ones as well, such as Mikasa, and even Historia to some extent, as she's basically written out of the story after season 3 part 1. Hanji and Ymir are both great examples of how to write a female character. They are multifaceted and have unique goals that suit their personalities. They have growth throughout their arcs, and the more we see them, the more we can learn more about them and that information directly plays into the show. For instance, once we learn Ymir's backstory, all of her actions make sense, and we can see a huge change in character from Hanji in Season 1 to Hanji in Season 4, as the choices she has to make as leader of the Survey Corps weigh on her heavily. I've talked about women in Attack on Titan a multitude of times, so I don't think I really need to do it again right now. The only issue that I have with Attack on Titan women is that there's just not a lot of them. Like, there's 5 in the Scouts and 3 in the Warriors. This one's dead. This one's been in a crystal for 2.5 seasons, and these 2 don't even exist in the first 3 seasons, leaving very few female characters to get attached to. Oh wait, I guess Armin is there too. Anyway, the next and final anime I want to talk about in depth is probably the anime that has the best female characters. It's Jujutsu Kaisen. Of all the new gen anime I've seen, Jujutsu Kaisen undoubtedly does female characters the best. A lot of them have their own fully developed personalities and actively fight the societal and patriarchal norms that women face in the world of Jujutsu. I think creating a world where women are held to a higher standard is a great way to mirror our own world and mirror what women go through in the real world. Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the few shows that I've ever seen do that. It's pointed out that oftentimes female Jujutsu sorcerers have to do more than their male counterparts to get the same degree of recognition, and even then, if their physical appearance or attitude isn't quite right, they can still fall short. I think this is a super important point to make when it comes to writing female characters, and I wish more shows brought up this disparity. But I think the fact that not a lot of anime talks about this difference in expectations is part of what makes Jujutsu Kaisen so much more memorable for the women. And we haven't even talked about the individual women in this show, because they are so developed and so multifaceted. Maki and Nobara are such well-written characters, partially because they fight the above standards, but also partially because they want to do it for themselves. Maki is fighting so hard to prove herself in the world of Jujutsu because of the family she comes from, because she doesn't have cursed energy, and because she's a woman. And she's doing pretty well. Her goal of wanting to lead the Zenin household makes sense for her character, as we can see that she's always been strong-willed ever since she was a child. Nobara, on the other hand, proves that you can still be girly without doing it for society. She does it because she wants to, and because she feels good when she's all dolled up and wearing her best clothing, not because she has to do it. I think the distinction that both of these women are doing what they're doing for themselves is very important to make, as it is central to both of their characters, and it gives them a lot of independence. And the last show I want to give an honorable mention to is Spy X Family. I haven't read the manga yet, but based on the 7-ish episodes I've seen so far, I think both Anya and Yor have a lot of potential for being well-written characters. At this point, it is a little bit too early to make that determination, but they both have fully fleshed out personalities and they're both integral to the plot. But like I said, it's a little bit too early to be sure. At the end of the day, I think the issue behind these women is the men that write them. Every single anime we talked about today was written by a man. And not just a man, but a man who is interested in anime, to the point that they make their whole career out of it. Speaking as someone who is doing the same, I can see that we do not exactly interact with that many women. This could play a part in why so many anime suck at writing women. If your main impressions of women are other anime or the way women are portrayed in media, you're going to have a skewed expectation of what it means to be a woman. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that a lot of these mangakas are writing what they write. It's great fiction and it's still very entertaining, but they could be better if they just wrote women better. It's really that simple. Anyway, thank you all for watching. This was a little bit different than what I usually do, but if you liked it, please let me know in the comments down below, and if you didn't, please let me know as well. I'm open to all feedback and I really want to know how I can improve my videos. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Discord, you know the drill by now. See you next week. Bye.